What's up guys, Dave with Miracle Canine Training. We're gonna be doing something a little bit new here and something I wanna experiment a little bit with, and that is critiquing videos where I watch dog training videos that you guys send me of you guys working your personal dogs. I give you some insight as far as things that I notice from it, things I can critique, help you guys do a little bit better, and try to help you guys past your issues virtually a little bit more. This first one is coming from Kayla here. Kayla has messaged me a couple of times about having some issues with getting her dog acclimated to the prong collar, having some issues getting her dog acclimated to the muzzle. And she was having a lot of issues with it where she didn't know what to do with it. So I had her send me a couple of videos. And throughout seeing those videos, I noticed a lot of little things that she was able to make adjustments with to help her get past these issues that she was having. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna watch the videos together. I'm gonna critique those videos, and then after we watch them, I'll talk a little bit about the adjustments I would have her make. And then we will move on to just a short clip that she had sent me of some of the adjustments that she made so you guys can see some of the progress that she got. So let's get started. We're gonna start watching now. All right, so we got your typical dog here, laying down, thrashing, typical brattiness that we see a lot of times with these dogs. The second clip of her trying to walk the dog biting at the leash a lot, trying to do some sits, things like that. You'll notice throughout a lot of these videos, one, there's a ton of verbal commands going on here, right? There's a ton of verbal commands going on here, and then in addition to that, there's just a lot going on, right? A lot of trying to ask the dog to sit, a lot of trying to get the dog into a heel position, a lot of trying to get the dog walking, praising, stuff like that, right? And a lot of times what we'll see with this is that people jump into doing too much too fast with their dogs when they're trying to introduce things, especially when they're having big issues with those specific things. So you'll notice in some of those early clips, she's having issues with the dog responding to the prong collar pressure, but she's also trying to do heeling. She's trying to do sits. She's trying to get the dog back into a heel after the sitting. And there's always all this tension on the leash that the dog is just resisting. Now, a part of this is the dog that she is working with seems like it has a little bit more of a bratty nature to it, right? You could tell it's got a lot of pushback and it just doesn't want to do these types of things. But a part of that brattiness and pushback is coming from that overwhelming sense of not knowing what to do, right? So it's not that the dog is, hurt or injured or anything like that in these situations. It's just kind of, I'm not understanding what you're throwing at me, so I'm just gonna throw a big fit, because typically that works in trying to get over these, trying to get out of doing these things, I should say. So biggest things I would notice here are, one, no verbal commands, right? So in these early stages of prong collar training, when we're doing things with dogs, the idea is we are teaching prong collar pressure. We're not teaching verbal commands here. So that leash in itself should become your communication and your only communication. So number one is we're gonna stop saying anything to the dog, and we're simply gonna teach that pressure. Step two is we're gonna go through these steps of introducing the prong collar, moving into the heeling, and moving into the sits in a slow, incremental fashion where we're not moving on to the next one until the one before is really good. So the first thing that I had mentioned on those videos was, instead of holding that leash really, really short and doing heeling and sits where the dog's gonna be feeling a lot of pressure very consistently, we wanna first get the dog used to feeling the pressure in a very specific manner and learning that there's only one thing that relieves that tension. So when I'm introducing the prong collar, what I'll do is I'll hold the leash very long, right? So as opposed to really short, I'll hold it long and I'll start moving around and walking where the dog has a bigger radius that they can stay within in order to be successful and understand that being close to me is good, but moving away from me and getting distracted is where you feel that pressure. So you're gonna hold the leash really long, you're gonna start walking around, and you're only gonna apply that tension when the dog leaves that big radius. Once the dog is smoothly moving with that tension, little by little, you're gonna shorten that leash like an inch at a time, 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 until the dog is closer, that radius is small enough where you could start to shape the heel position, right? Once you're at that stage of things, what you're gonna do is then you're gonna start enforcing the heel position. Left-hand side, right? Not getting ahead of you, not crossing over to the right side or anything. And you're not gonna worry about any sits, right? And you're gonna work on that step then of enforcing that heel position and getting the dog used to staying in that tighter pocket. And you're gonna work on that until it's perfect, right? And what I mean by perfect is that the dog is not resisting the leash and having these kind of spaz outs, right? Only then are you gonna move on to sits. right? And that process could take a day, right? And most of the dogs that we work with, usually in an hour, we can get over those 3 things, right? Or if you want to take a day per step, you could do that, right? Hold the leash all the way at the end, walk around, get the dog walking, do that for 30 minutes, right? Put the dog away. Next day, take the dog out for 30 minutes and enforce your heeling. Perfect, put the dog away. Next day, take the dog out and do your sitting. You could take as much or as little time as you need with this in order to move through these steps, but you have to do it in that incremental fashion, right? So next thing that she sent me is some issues that she's been having with the muzzle and getting her dog muzzled up, right? I believe the dog has some reactivity or aggression issues and has not been able to socialize the dog due to not being able to get the dog muzzle conditioned. So let's go ahead and check out those videos here and then we'll kind of talk about them a little bit. So same deal, trying to put the muzzle on the dog, dog's pawing it away, kind of, you know, acting up a little bit, getting a little sassy with it. You see, trying to bite the muzzle and play with it, almost looking like it thinks it's like a toy, right? Second clip here, same deal, pawing at it, talking about how some people will put peanut butter in the muzzle to get the dog to lick the inside of it and stuff like that. And ultimately just, you know, holding that muzzle out, almost hoping that the dog is just gonna kind of stick their face in it and accept it in themselves, which is not the reality of muzzle conditioning dogs. I know there's a lot of people out there that'll talk about doing it in a really positive fashion and doing it in a way where, you know, they're teaching the dog to stick their face in it and then accept having the clips put behind their back and this and that. But one, that's reliant on having an unbelievably motivated dog, which most people do not have one. And two, it takes a lot of time in order to do that. I take a little bit different of an approach. I teach the dog that the muzzle is not optional, especially if I need to get it on you in order to work past behavioral issues, right? So, biggest thing that I'm noticing right there is, like I said, it's optional to the dog. The dog has the ability to just go away if they want to, and they have no ability they're in no position to be able to control the dog physically at all. So first thing, put the dog on a leash, right? Once the dog is on a leash, you can ensure that it's no longer a game. The dog can no longer run away. You could micromanage some of the trying to jump up on you or paw at the muzzle a little bit better at that point. Put the dog on a leash, pull the dog to you, take that muzzle and just put it right on their face and get those straps behind the ears and put it on, right? If the dog tries to fight, ignore it, just get it on them as quickly as you can with as much of a production as you can, and then leave it on for like 30 to 45 minutes and do that once a day. And what you're gonna find is the first couple times that you do it, dog puts a big fit and paws at it and this and that. And as long as you have those straps on tight enough, you're gonna see that the dog's not gonna be able to get it off and the dog is gonna realize themselves that they can't get it off and they're probably just gonna lay down and give up at some point. The more you do that, the more comfortable the dog gets with having that muzzle on and the more used to it they get with having you put it on and then actually wearing it for extended periods of time. Again, for some dogs, this can just take a couple of days before they get used to it. For some dogs, it can be up to a week before they get used to it. But committing to making it non-optional, just sticking it on the dog's face, putting those straps on and putting yourself in a position where the dog can't see it as a game by having control with the leash will help you get past those issues. Like I said, this is just the other day. I had these videos sent to me, kind of responded, sent some clips over that I have from some of my YouTube videos on introducing the prong collar. And it looks like he's doing dramatically better with this kind of stuff. So I'll play these 2 clips. It doesn't look like she's quite at the stage of enforcing really strict heeling yet, but you can see that the dog is accepting the prong collar at this point. We're no longer getting these tantrums and stuff. So let's roll through those. So same deal, just walking, loose leash, obviously. Dog's a little bit ahead, but like I said, those are things you can clean up as you move into the second stages of enforcing your heeling. But all in all, this looks pretty good. I mean, the dog's not pulling or anything. She's on a very loose leash. The only thing she needs to work on now is moving the dog into that heel position. Very good. And then you could see as she stopped at the end when the dog started getting too far ahead, the dog stopped and gave her attention. Again, not thrilled about the heel position in that, but that's just because she needs to move to that stage next. The most important thing is at the end when the dog felt that tension, you didn't see that big dramatic response again. Let's see the second clip. Same deal, walking with him. This time looks like she's got a bag with her. Just a nice little clip of walking with the dog. So that's great. Like I said, looks really good. The next things that I would want to see here are moving into the heel position. So start shortening that leash up so the dog doesn't have the ability to get so far ahead of you and start, you know, strictly enforcing that heel. And then you're going to start adding your sits in and you should be good to go. But very common issues that we'll get, dogs that are resistant of things, dogs that are, you know, not having a good time with resisting to that or, you know, heeding to that pressure, just putting a lot of resistance on. So work through it, see what you get. Looks good though. Like I said, I'd like to do more of these, so if anybody has clips of themselves working with their dogs, I'd be happy to view them, give you guys my input on them, and see if we could help you move in the right direction here, and give you some pointers on things you need to adjust. Until then, we'll see you guys next time on the next video.